Hi, this is Margaret Maloney, and welcome to the Death Dhamma podcast. Together we will consider life, death, and impermanence. Because in between birth and death, we lose things. Not just our glasses and our keys. We lose identities, relationships, ideas, and more. But what we can gain right now is facing this together, and we will gain freedom, peace, and progress on our path. Greetings, everyone, and today I bring you a fascinating, I think so, and I hope you will too, a fascinating discussion with Bob Rich. Bob is an Australian storyteller with 19 published books in a variety of genres, fiction and nonfiction. 5 of his books and over 40 of his short stories have won awards. He says that he's retired 5 times from 5 different occupations, but you know what? Now he's going strong as a professional grandfather. What an amazing thing. He carries on much of his work at his popular blog, Bobbing Around. You know, he discovered that he was a Buddhist at 23 when a Christian minister told him, "You're a Buddhist." And in those pre-internet days, he needed to spend a whole day in the university library to check up on this claim. And to his surprise, he found that his philosophy had been set out in beautiful words. He decided not to sue the Buddha for plagiarism because that was his act of loving kindness. He's not fussed by death because he feels like he's done it all too many times. And on that note, Bob Rich, thank you so much for joining me and everyone here on the Death Dhamma podcast. Maybe you can share with us your idea of, the experience of the loss of a thing or a relationship experience.
Well, I've had major transitions in my life, and each time looking back, I've realized there were improvements.
Tell us more about that. Why?
Oh, well, all through high school, I was going to be a physicist because I wanted to benefit humanity.
Mm-hmm.
I arrived at university, and at that time, all physics was about nuclear stuff. And it horrified me, and it still does now. And so I said, we've got too much technology, we're using it the wrong way, we need to understand people. So I switched to psychology, and that actually was part of my karmic requirement. I needed to be a healer in this life.
So thank you for bringing that up right away when you say that's part of your karmic requirement. And would you share with us a little bit about what you mean by that? Because I feel like that's a very important concept for us to think about together.
Well, in 2007, I finally found a therapist that I could work with. I knew it had to be an older lady, older than I am. And I was a senior therapist at the time myself. Other people looked to me. All the most difficult clients were sent to me because I could help them.
Mm-hmm.
But I needed someone to help me to process the traumas of my infancy. And this lady used age regression hypnosis and indeed sent me back to my infancy.
Mm-hmm.
But then also I went into past lives. And I recovered 5 past lives. And later on I did more work along this line, and I was using a video conference with a colleague in Scotland. I'm in Australia. Mm-hmm. Wonderful, isn't it? And I did recover a couple more. And then a voice that was not a voice and a thought that was not my thought said, "This is all filling time."
This is all filling time? Is that what you said?
Filling time.
Okay.
So that told me that the 5 lives I recovered during that therapy in 2007 were the ones I needed to do my work in this life.
Oh, so this was the message you needed. I'm interpreting, so you can and should correct me if I go off here. This was the messaging you needed to put you on the path that was the correct path for you in this life, which is to be more of a healer. Is that fair to say it that way?
Well, that's part of it. Not during these sessions with this lady, but for 2 years afterwards, I did self-hypnosis and then deliberate past life regression. And I recovered between life periods when I was talking is the wrong word, communicating with a superior being. And I can't describe this person except it was a mother. And interestingly, all my novels seem to have a mother figure in them, a superior mother. I mean, in my last novel, which was just published in early October, that is actually about a superior person who's assigned to Earth as a guardian spirit for us little humans. And so she has to live a few lives as a human. But anyway.
Will you remind me the name of that novel, please? Since it's brand new, I want to make sure that we get to
Maraglindi, Superior Spirit. Maraglindi is her name in the first life that she chooses on Earth. A little Aboriginal girl who was born when her mother was raped by a white man in 1850. So she is child of the land, fruit of an evil deed, an instrument of love.
Yeah, and that ties back to your experience with your past life regression.
Yeah, so that's actually a distraction. I'm sorry, I should stick to more in a straight line.
No, it's not. I don't believe it's a distraction. I feel like it's an interesting point that is part of your path, but thank you.
Well, part of my being.
Part of your being.
Sometimes when I'm meditating, I feel that I'm being watched. And it's always a female observer. I think it's this mother person who guides me. I think we all have assigned guardian superior people, and mine happens to be someone who prefers to be a mother. Well, the last recall I have of interaction with this person, I asked a number of things. One was that in this life I should be a healer, and that, well, because of my immediate past life, I had to be born a fighter. But that was because my immediate past life was on a planet which was a jungle world.
Okay.
And it was kill or be killed. And all the different species fed off each other. All members of the one species had complete love for each other. In previous lives, male and female, and people hating each other for minor differences were so hurtful. I didn't want to be a human.
Okay, I could. So sometimes I don't want to be a human either.
I became this sentient plant.
I see.
But anyway, that was a fight life, so I had to carry that with me. But when I was young, my reaction to bullying and victimization was to bash up the bully. But then I grew from that. And now my wish is to lead the bully to grow spiritually and to gain an empathy. So that was part of the necessary step that I asked for. I was told that in this life, I have a choice. Either I will, or it's not my choice, but either I will witness the entire destruction of a sentient species, which is humans, or I can be instrumental in saving us.
Oh.
So guess what I've been spending my life on?
Saving.
And we're there, aren't we? We're right on the edge.
We're right on the edge, definitely. Yeah. Definitely, as you say that.
So and our team just needs to win.
Our team just needs to win. And I will just like to interject, if you don't mind. There are a couple of other people that I've spoken to, not in the context of the podcast, but just in life, that also share a very similar belief, that we're really on the brink of something here. And maybe you could argue that all generations of human beings say, oh, the end is near. But certainly we're living in really difficult times where we can make a difference. And that's what I'm trying to get around to, is that a few people have said, like, those of you who can make a difference, you really need to be doing that right now. So that's what you've seen.
I don't believe anything. I've got scientific training and I think like a scientist. So I look at the available evidence. When it's hard evidence, like with regard to the fact that we're in the sixth extinction event of Earth, that's completely indisputable. Sometimes hard evidence isn't available. For example, what happens between lives, that's only hearsay. I can have my beliefs, but I may be fooling myself with my personal experiences. And as far as you're concerned, what I'm telling you about this talk with this superior person is just my opinion. But nevertheless, I can take the best available evidence and construct a temporary model. And as new evidence comes along, I can modify that model. And the total evidence tells me that never mind what past people have believed, this time it's really true.
This is real. Okay, so here's what I feel like I'm hearing you discuss is, so, once upon a time, you were going to be a physicist, a man of hard science, so to speak. I don't know if that's the right word, but a man of science. And then you didn't like what you were seeing about what physics was really about, and you felt pulled to do something else. But I feel like you went down this path of some self-discovery after you decided to not be a physicist. Is it fair to say that?
Well, look, even at school, I was what I call a lame duck collector. Look, I had no family, or at least my family was 12,000 miles away on the other side of the planet. I was immensely self-bashing. I was depressed from at least 5 years of age. And so I knew I'd never have a girlfriend. And there were these kids crying on my shoulder because their parents were fighting. And I could soothe them down. And there were these kids bringing to me their girlfriend problems.
I see.
And I had the ability to help them. And look, all of this is in another one of my books called Ascending Spiral, which is actually my life story. But because my life can only be understood with the past lives, it's actually a number of lives, these 5 lives I mentioned, plus my current one, but I fictionalize it for 2 reasons. One is I want to protect the guilty. I don't want to be sued.
I get that.
And the second one is there's a wonderful psychological technique. You write a film script. At this stage, there is no plot. You don't know what's going to happen in the future. So you design the hero, the main character, and this person has your exact physical body and your exact history. Everything that's happened in this person's past is what's happened in your past. But this person handles those past choices the way you wish you had.
Oh, I see.
And then, of course, you step into the role and act that person. So the hero of Ascending Spiral, Pip, is the person I wish I was. Pip, I think, reading the book, he is enlightened. I'm a long way. I've got a long way to go.
All of us, most of us anyway, right? You were going to be a physicist. You didn't. In the meantime, you always had this skill of helping others when they came to you with their problems, and you go through this transition. Was it a surprise to you when you realized, like, oh, I'm not going to be a physicist? Was this surprising to you?
No, it was a very deliberate choice. Halfway through first year at university, I had a teacher in school, Mr. Woods, who was a brilliant English teacher. He got me on the debating team. I said, "Sir, I've got an accent. I can't do debating." He said, "You've got an accent and you can do debating." And we were the roughest school in the competition. And I was the whip, that's the third speaker. And we came second. And we only came second because I was nobbled by this girl on the other team. She made eyes at me and gave me her phone number.
Oh, she worked you.
So my head was full of starlit pink cotton wool.
Yes, lovey-dovey thoughts. Yes.
And so I couldn't do my job as a whip. And so we came second.
My goodness. The tricks we play, the unfair advantages. You did start off, as we started speaking about, saying that when things were different and an idea or how we thought things were going to be changed or died, to use my phrase, that sometimes it was better.
In my life, all transitions, when I look back and I say, how on earth did I survive that?
Because it was always led to something better.
And to growth.
And to growth as a person, spiritually, I'm guessing all those things.
Yeah. Anyway, one thing you asked me to mention before we started recording was my current profession. See, I retired 5 times from 5 different professions, but I'm still going strong as a writer and editor and above all, professional grandfather.
Yes. And that, when you first wrote to me, and it's been a few months, and you wrote that, that is one of the things that really made me want to talk to you, because it just, to me, embodied this man who cares, is caring, and wants to help and wants to share what has happened in his life. I'll say in the right way, because, we don't always all listen, right?
What that means to me is that the young people of today deserve a tomorrow. And the way things are going, they're not going to have one. I think we are heading for the end of humanity in my lifetime. And I'm an old fella. But also I want them to have a future worth surviving in. I want them to have a world that's not ruled by greed and hate and fear, but one ruled by empathy, compassion, decency, sharing, fairness.
I think it is possible. So what do you recommend to move us to that place?
To take on the message of all the sages from the ages. Read the messages of the Buddha, Jesus, Confucius, Lao Tzu, the ancient Mayans. Look, all these messages are the same. Muhammad said, Jesus is a true prophet of Allah, and therefore his message is valid. And therefore a good Muslim will give unconditional love to all. Right. And, one of Muhammad's injunctions is zakat, which is charity. And in Jewish custom, there is the mitzvah, which is a sacred good deed. And the point of it being sacred is if nobody knows about it, then I'm not rewarded by their acknowledgement. So I'm a better person for doing it.
To do it just to do it, not to do it for public recognition.
So a good Jew is supposed to do at least 1 mitzvah a day. It's a bit hard.
That's a good guideline for all of us, whether you call it a mitzvah or you just call it a kindness, any of us, to do a good thing every day.
Well, you can do kindnesses that are acknowledged too. There's nothing wrong with it.
Right.
The more the better. One of my cliches is, depending who I'm talking to, all sentient beings on this planet are apprentice Buddhas or apprentice Jesuses. It's the same thing.
Okay. Because what you're saying to us is our religions are teaching us the same messages.
And you can be an atheist. And if you follow those messages, then you will grow towards enlightenment. The aim of life is enlightenment.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate that message too, because I do occasionally run into people who have a hard time with the idea of an atheist being able to do a good thing, as if you have to have, I'll say, the fear of a superior being to do good things. And I guess I naively, maybe or not, want to believe that people can just do good things. And also, I want everyone to have the religion or spiritual system they need to help them as a human being.
I don't practice any religion. Okay. I'm a secular Buddhist, which means I take on the philosophy, or actually, I seem to have been born with the philosophy. Suppose that no one had any food, and I had the last potato in the world, and someone came up to me and pointed a gun at me and said, "Here you have it." I wouldn't fight.
Potato. Right. But I think you would give the potato without being at gunpoint.
Yeah.
Right.
Or cut it in half.
Yes. So sad that somebody thinks they need the gun to ask, right? Let's go back to, the death of an idea and things. And so we've got this, we were having this discussion around, being a physicist and then learning about your past lives and the fact that it's important for you to heal and, becoming this healer through therapy, and that it really, you're saying it wasn't really a surprise. Was there anything in particular that helped you reconcile those moments where you went through where you realized, I'm not going to be a physicist, I'm going to do this other thing? What helped you make that shift?
I still wanted to benefit humanity.
Okay.
And I decided understanding people was the way to go.
More.
I was terribly, terribly, terribly depressed until I was 21.
Okay.
And then I got to know my stepfather again. And instead of hating him, I became friends with him and developed compassion for him and even liking. And that was the start of my healing. And then for 2 years, I did on myself what I later learned was cognitive behavioral therapy.
Okay.
And this included an additional university subject called Girls 101.
Girls 101. And I remember you said there was a time in your life where you thought you were going to be single forever. And obviously that's not true. But anyway.
Went up to a girl, preferably not too pretty, because they were the frightening ones.
That's too frightening. Yes.
Yeah. And I'd stammer my way through a conversation, try and make it 5 minutes. Then I'd go home and I write down, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? How can I do it better next time?
Okay.
And I kept improving. This is standard behavioral therapy, but I didn't know it. And so I started acquiring sisters.
You started acquiring sisters?
Sisters, yeah. And
tell me what you mean by that.
All these girls really liked me. They were happy to be in my company. I didn't want...
I get it. They all wanted you to be their brother. I'm sorry. Yeah. You said it. I just wasn't thinking. You said it. Yeah. Oh, okay. So now you were in the, now today, what do they call that? The friend zone. So you were in the friend zone with these young ladies.
None of them wanted to be my girlfriend.
Okay. So what did you do?
By 23 years of age, I was getting pretty good at getting rid of depression. And that was a change. I went to a wedding and this girl sort of picked me up, basically.
Okay.
As I stood up to go, she said, you're going to ask me to dance, aren't you? She was my girlfriend for a while, and then I asked her to marry me, and she turned me down.
Ouch.
She revealed that actually the week before that wedding, she'd temporarily separated from her boyfriend. They decided they each wanted a year apart.
Okay.
To see if they were right for each other. And she came along to this wedding and picked me up to fill the hole for the time being, basically.
Oh, ouch. That hurts my feelings on your behalf.
And so that was terrible.
Yes.
That was a death.
That was a death because you fell in love and you were planning your future and she didn't share with you that, pardon me for saying it this way, but that in a way, your relationship was an experiment to her.
It was a lie, really, but cognitive dissonance is very powerful.
Yeah, it was a lie.
She didn't expect me to be so intense, she said.
Okay.
But anyway,
she thought
so I went along to a party where there was free beer, and I had a beer. It tasted awful. So I had a second beer, tasted worse. So I said, I'm not going to get drunk. That's just adding 2 problems instead of 1 problem. So I went for a 30-mile run. And by the time I burst through the pain barrier, I knew I'd survive. And 6 months later, I was married to another girl. And we're still married now, 54 and a half years later.
And that's the beautiful part of where you began our time together discussing the fact that these times when things didn't go the way you thought they were going to go brought you to something better.
And you know what? In my past life recalls, I found out that this girl I married is the reincarnation of the person who was my nanny in my previous human life. You know, the person who breastfed me, because my mother was too busy. Before that life, she was the girl who I knew I'd always loved and always would. When she was 16 and I was 18, I had to go to war. This was in Ireland. This was the Irish Rebellion of 1798.
Okay.
So we shared love because she wanted to get pregnant. The English raped and murdered her. So she died. And that poisoned that life.
Yes.
And before that, the first time I met her was in Viking times. Okay. When I died trying to defend her from the Vikings. So we go back a long way.
You go back a long way. And does it seem like, so we know of 5 lifetimes. Does it seem like this is the lifetime where you've really gotten to be together for a more...
Destined to have sooner or later a life together. And this
When
is
you have.
you know, in relationships counseling, there's a fellow called John Gottman who's done some wonderful research. And one of his concepts is putting love in the bank. And he says a good relationship has 5 good interactions for every bad one. There are always bad interactions. But if you have a ratio of 5 to 1, then you've got a good relationship. When I found this out, I quietly counted our interactions and we had 20 to 1.
That makes my heart happy. That makes my heart happy. That's lovely. Now, may I ask the young lady who was being untruthful about your relationship, did she go back and marry that boyfriend? Do you know?
I have no idea. I've completely lost touch with them.
Good.
But she was, oh no, I'd love to find out.
Okay.
She was a wonderful person.
Yes, because you wanted to marry her. So obviously she wasn't horrible.
Her problem was that she was a musician and a music teacher, and she felt she couldn't really marry someone who was not a musician.
And that's just a whole discussion for another day about how we get attached to ideas about how things are supposed to be, right? But you know what? For now, I'm going to say great for her and her attachment to how she thought she had to be, because that opened the door for you to marry your lovely wife, whom you have been trying to be together for all these lives. And now you have had this lovely span together. So
yeah, we had
goes
4,
back to what you said.
Yeah, we had 4 connection over 4 lives.
It goes
and
back.
Going back to 700 and something the first time, 760 something. I didn't know that. I deduced it by doing research. You know, I am the scientist. I do research on anything and everything.
Now, you mentioned being a secular Buddhist, and you know, so many of our listeners are Buddhists. And I thought that I would like to learn from you, so that we could all learn from you. What are some of the teachings in Buddhism that you have found to be the most helpful, you know, as you've been navigating this human life, with resilience for these different times? We've just spoken of a couple of examples, but of these different times in your life where you've had, you know, this change, this death of an idea or a thing.
Okay, there's a wise person in one of my books, which is as yet unpublished, and he explained, there is no reality. There is no thing and no nothing. No body and no nobody. There is only what there is and that isn't. Change is the only constant, and only consciousness can see it. What the consciousness sees, it sees.
Let's hear another one.
Well, equanimity, whatever is, you know, suffering has 2 components. One part is something bad out there, a physical pain or an emotional pain or whatever. And the second part is wanting it to go away. And if you are not happy, but if you're content to have it there, that physical sensation or that grief or whatever, then you are not suffering. Suffering is from attachment, either attachment to hanging on to something good or attachment to wanting something bad to go away. If you can live in the moment, in the now, past is history, future's a mystery, I give you a present. Pity that only works in English.
Right. I know it is.
Then you cannot suffer. Of course, now is only for this instant. You look at a river, you look back, it may seem the same, but it's a different piece of water, so everything has changed. I can be in nirvana in this instant and return to suffering in the next instant. All I have to do is to go back to equanimity, and the suffering will go. Okay. And if I can practice that, eventually I can become an enlightened spirit and always escape from suffering. And I can be passionate from doing my job. You know, acceptance does not mean putting up with evil.
Okay.
We fight evil with everything we've got, but with compassion for the perpetrator.
This is what I'm hearing. It's the, I'm sure you've heard this analogy too, the analogy of the 2-prong arrow. I'm struck once by an arrow and it hurts. Dwell on the pain and keep wishing that I hadn't been hit by the arrow. I wish I wasn't in pain. Now I am increasing my suffering. I'm increasing my suffering because I'm not accepting that I've been hit by the arrow.
Every person born after 1993 on this planet is my grandchild. Every person born after about 1968 is my child.
Mm-hmm.
And older people can be my brothers and sisters. There may be a few who can be my uncles and aunts.
Beautiful.
All sentient beings on this planet are family.
You've been listening to the Death Dhamma podcast with your host, Margaret Maloney. Thank you so much for being here. Come find me on margaretmaloney.com, margaretmeloni.com. And until we meet again, may you be well, may you be happy, may you be at ease, and may you be free from suffering. Bye for now.